That's how we own it. Welcome to Street Politicians. I'm Mysonne.
And I'm Tamika D. Mallory, and this is the place where
Where
the
the
streets
streets
and
and
politics
politics
meet.
meet.
There's so much happening in the country. It's been a crazy week. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Street Politicians, and let's get into it. We're going to be talking about a bunch of things today, but, just thinking about the environment that we're in, where all of this is just, it's a lot happening. People are definitely feeling a lot of weight. You've got the president who's been impeached, and there's, obviously a trial going on right now. A lot happening with that. I try not to watch it because it's just a lot of trauma, but there is a real impeachment situation happening in our country, and that has a lot of implications. There's a virus that's spreading across the world. We were talking earlier about this virus that's coming out of China. It's now in the U.S., and, just trying to learn more about it. I think it's the coronavirus is the appropriate name. So that's a lot.
So
then
people
we see
drinking Corona's got a virus?
no, it's just way serious.
Wow.
Like it's way serious. I mean, it's
I'm
spreading
trying to
and
make it a
people.
little lighter, but it's definitely really serious.
No, and people are dying, particularly in Asian countries. And here, like I said, it's here now. So there are people in the United States that actually have the virus, and they've been quarantined, and there's a lot happening there. And then, sex trafficking, I talk about it on all of our shows, and we will continue to talk about it. We're actually working on some things through our organization, Until Freedom, just to help educate people on missing women and girls, particularly Black, Latino, and Native American. People don't often talk about the fact that a lot of Native American women go missing from reservations, and there's, not a lot of focus on it. So we're doing some work to try to really bring a spotlight to that. There are cases of police brutality happening across the country. I've been watching, we've been so busy working on other things with Until Freedom, but I still try to keep up with Attorney Lee Merritt, obviously Sean King and his platform, Benjamin Crump, and just attorneys across the country. And every single day they're posting about people who are being killed. So it's not on the news like it was. And I think, honestly, I'm into some conspiracy theories. I'm almost certain that, at some point, the energy with Black Lives Matter was so big and so hot that the media decided to stop playing so many stories of people who have been killed. And so now you don't see it as much, but it's still happening. And of course, there's a lot of, it's like you have all of that happening. And I guess it's just a Black experience. Like we have all those things happening, and then Black excellence is popping. Like you see so much beauty and so many Black folks doing great, amazing things. I know at some point we're going to talk about the Grammys and the whole weekend, the Rock Nation brunch. And so there's a lot happening. But I will say that, in the Bible, when you read people who actually study, and doesn't matter what you believe in and who you call God, but if you really look at the Bible, it shows where there would be these types of situations where you would see earthquakes. Look at what's happening in Puerto Rico. It is so sad to see that they keep getting hit by very serious weather conditions and these earthquakes, and that's happening all over the world. But that's, again, Puerto Rico is right here in the U.S. There are earthquakes, and I know that when you walk outside in New York and other places around the country, one day it's 50 degrees, one day it's 11 degrees. Climate change is a real serious thing. So there's so much that, again, is going on. And I know people are feeling very heavy, right? But at the same time, we see a lot of beauty coming out of our communities too. And we're just resilient people, for real. To go through all of that and still look good, I don't know how we're doing it, but we are.
Well, that's a lot,
It is.
A whole lot.
So we'll try to cover some of it today. And, I was talking about the trauma, and obviously Kobe Bryant what has happened, his death and his daughter's death, and the deaths of all the other individuals who were on that flight yesterday is traumatic. It is heartbreaking, so heartbreaking. And you have to ask yourself, how do we just deal with so much trauma in our lives every day, especially with people who we don't even know? We're experiencing trauma with people we don't even know.
I just think Sleep in peace to Kobe Bryant, man. I was in the movie theater with my sons, and we went to see Dr. Dolittle. So when they were enjoying the movie, and I got a call saying that Kobe Bryant had died, and I'm like, what? I ran out the movie and started making some calls, and to actually find out that it was true, and I just was so confused. And it's so crazy that LeBron just passed his scoring. He just passed him in scoring the night before. And so when you look,
for people who like me who don't understand a lot about sports and basketball, that means that Kobe Bryant had one scoring record, right?
He was
and
he was on because he was
LeBron got more points.
He got more points. He had passed him in the amount of points collectively throughout his career, and LeBron had just passed him on the list. And when you understand how much of a competitor Kobe is, it's just like crazy that the minute somebody passes him and beats him, he would lose his life. Like his spirit was competitive, And when I sat there and I thought about that, then I thought about when I found out that he was on the plane with his daughter.
Yeah,
and just understanding the type of man that he is, and understanding that I find so much similarities in the way that we compete and the drive that we have, and just imagining what he was probably going through on that helicopter when his daughter, he couldn't save his daughter.
Right.
Because he probably wasn't thinking about himself.
Right.
I wouldn't have been thinking about myself.
Right.
Me going through that and hearing my daughter cry, and everything in me would be trying to figure out, how do I save my daughter?
Right.
I would give my life, forget me, but my daughter needs to be saved. So I thought about all of those things at one time, and it made me emotional. Started texting people, calling friends, telling them I love them, getting texts from people.
Yeah.
I think it made you really just reflect on your life and what life means.
And that's the thing, like today, I mean, obviously it was happening all night, but today when I woke up and started going through my social media feed, I saw so many people talking about hugging your loved ones and telling your loved ones that you care about them. And, you always have to ask yourself, is it that just in these moments we start doing that and then we get back to regular life and we forget about the little things, just the little conversations. I read something on Felicia Butterfield Jones, our good friend, on her social media page where she said that people, and I'm not going to quote it exactly, but that somebody who was on that flight had a plan for today or the next day.
Yep, they had the whole schedule.
But they say God is the only planner.
That's right. They say if you want to make God laugh, then you tell him your plans.
Tell him your plans.
But
I do want to make sure, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I do want to make sure that we mention that, again, there were other families there. And there was a mother and father with their daughter.
Yeah, with 7 other people.
And then a mother with her daughter, the pilot. So many people lost their lives.
Yeah, man. So we just want to send out our condolences to them, to Vanessa. Vanessa lost her husband and her daughter. So I couldn't even imagine what she's going through right now. I think anybody in her circumference who's able, to lift her, to hold on to her, to hug her, because she's definitely going through a lot right now. So
I'm going to find this thing while you're talking that someone wrote on Facebook that I thought was so powerful and such an example of, as women, what we experience. And it talks about strength, the strength of a woman. And, of course, it doesn't want to pull up at this moment. But basically, it starts out by saying that today, Vanessa learned about a strength that she didn't know she had yesterday. That we go through things and you say, I could never deal with that until it happens to you. And then there's a strength that you draw from that you never knew you had.
We constantly see women like that. Trayvon's mother, Lucia Macbeth.
Yeah, Jordan Davis's mother.
Like people that we've seen walk into their greatness.
Our own mothers.
Our own mothers who have walked into their greatness after the biggest tragedies that they've had to deal with, man.
Yeah.
But I don't want to even bring this up. Really don't. But you have to bring this up, because somehow racism always tends to be,
It's like we can't just be centered in a conversation. Something else has to happen that just gets people off the point. And on to a racist issue that we have to address.
I didn't even want to bring it up. It was all over my timeline. A bunch of people were tweeting it, and there was this commentator Commentator. Why I said commentator? You know what I'm saying? Common hater. That's common, kind of like what it means anyway. But there was a commentator.
See, but you just did the same thing that she is being accused of.
But
The
the
words
thing is,
got all mixed up.
oh no, but listen, when you can hear the words I said, because I said what I said, commentator. I ain't saying I said something different. You know, so but there's definitely there's a balance. Some people believe that she didn't, but when I listened to it over 100 times, you know,
that
and
she said
that the commentator was reporting on the death of Kobe Bryant, and the context of the sentence didn't even really make sense to me.
An athlete, the kind of star that was perfectly cast on the Los Angeles Lakers. Kavita, if I could ask you to stay with us, we're gonna.
You know, she said Kobe Bryant was perfectly casted on the L.A. niggers. And Lakers. And when you listen, why was he perfectly casted? Like, what made him perfectly casted on a thing? This is a black man you're talking about. What made him perfectly casted on this team that never existed?
She says that she was saying, she was trying to say Lakers and thinking of Knicks at the same time, and that
why would you be
Lakers
thinking of the
came
Knicks?
together.
I'm just trying to figure out. There's a teleprompter.
Is she a New Yorker?
I don't know what she is. But even if you're a New Yorker, right, you know that Kobe Bryant never played for the Knicks. The Knicks weren't playing.
But she might not be a sports person. Here's the thing.
But
I listened to it, and it sounds to me like she said nigger. That's what I heard.
Like
and
nigger.
Almost everyone that I know that's black, and particularly black people who actually use the word, and by the way, on social media, even white folks who probably use it and don't want nobody to know they use it, they said they heard nigga. That's what I heard. I'm not ready to join the cancel culture on her, though. I'm not ready to say.
But I'm saying, why? This is what I want to know. Why are we constantly being asked not to join cancel culture when we can do things? They can say we said or did things that nobody ever heard and cancel us. But we can literally see and hear things with our own ears and our own eyes, and we shouldn't join the cancel culture. At what point do we say that certain things have to be respected? When they call Martin Luther King, Martin Luther Coon, and these things, they say, oh, we made a mistake. Like, why don't we make mistakes and say something about the cracker? Or why don't we accidentally say honky or things like that are derogatory? Why do you never see that happen?
Well, some people deliberately say cracker.
But that's what I'm trying to say. But that's
topic.
what I'm saying. And they deliberately say it, and you know that it's being said deliberately. But why don't we ever make that mistake with other words? Why when we speaking about other people, these words
I think
don't accidentally come up?
I'm just saying, I don't know about words, but I know we make mistakes, right? We make mistakes, and that really kind of leads us into another conversation about Kobe. But we do make mistakes in life, and there should be some room, some grace given to every individual. Racism is a little bit different. We have to be able to challenge that. And I particularly don't appreciate somebody telling me that they didn't say something when I believe that they did. But, again, I'm not an expert, and my good friend Tony Lindsay argued me down that he heard Nakers, and he actually does audio, and he's in the film industry, right? So he's a producer, and he said this is what he heard. So there are different people coming from different perspectives. I don't think that we can be like them, the they that is constantly challenging us, judging us, and trying to condemn us. I think that the beauty, and maybe you'll say that's probably our issue. That's probably one of the things about black folks in particular that's problematic.
We
always forgive.
Yeah.
We want to hug. We want to hug the cop that killed Botham Jean.
Exactly. That's the problem for me. It's like we sit here and we take abuse. We see things that are blatant, and we figure out ways to shun them and ignore the facts. And for me, I'm not 100% sure of anything when it comes to that situation, but I know what I heard. If somebody else heard something different and they have the ability to make that decision and that determination based on what they heard, then cool. But I know what I heard.
I know. I feel like I heard the same thing. But again, I'm not ready to join the cancel culture that says that's it forever. I think that if in fact she did say it, your racism reared its dirty head, and you better like figure out how not to allow that to happen again. But that's another day. It's a lot of debate around that. But talking about mistakes and evolving, you know, there's another debate online, and it seems like this happens all the time. That's because there's no such thing as a perfect individual, right? Where people are talking about
is this
where people are talking about Kobe's past, right? And indiscretions, things that happen, you know, extramarital affairs, and particularly the major concern or issue that I've seen a lot of people, basically women, speaking about is the woman who accused him of rape, right? People want to talk about that right now. Yeah. In the midst of and do I think that yesterday was the right day to talk about that? I'm not sure. I'm not comfortable with us having to go directly to the negatives on folks when someone blows up in a plane with their child. That to me is a little out of place. But I do have to reconcile the fact that women, specifically women who have been sexually assaulted, it is triggering for them when they see someone who they believe to be a perpetrator of sexual violence being celebrated in such a way.
Well, I have two different points of views. First of all, you know, I definitely don't think yesterday was a day to bring that up, because we have it with conversation. How long ago was it that these allegations came up?
I don't know, but it's been long.
It's been quite a long time, and
time.
They haven't came up since then. And we ask ourselves, at what point does allegations that have been, the charges have been dismissed? At what point does the allegations not have the same level of validity, or do we just completely, somebody who's been exonerated of charges, are we going to completely continue to condemn him and call him these names and call him a rapist and things like that? At what point do you say, okay, the charges were dropped? Like, I want everybody to understand, I want to be very clear. I am not a rape apologist. Anyone who's raped a woman, anyone who has done something to a woman that is against her will, when she said no, whatever it is, I believe that you need to deal with the consequences of those acts. But I also want to know,
where's the line drawn?
Where's the line drawn? If a person has been accused of something and those accusations have been deemed not valid or they have been dismissed, when do we give that person's back their reality, give them back their humanity? Because once you've been accused of that, and it hasn't been any, you know,
right,
no one has dropped the charge. Once you've been accused and you guilty of what, you lost your humanity as a man.
Right. Well,
so if those charges have been dismissed, do we give that person back his humanity?
Yeah, I mean, but then also there are some people who would argue, what about the humanity of a person who may have filed claims, and because of the way in which the world just operated at one point, and particularly during the time when Kobe was accused of this, the athlete, the star athlete, the celebrity, those types of individuals really were like slapped on the wrist. That's just the truth. We're in the Me Too era now, where there's been a shift in terms of accountability for sexual assault and sexual violence. This is a new day that we're living in this moment. How do you think that someone like a Bill Cosby and Harvey Weinstein and R. Kelly, and the list goes on and on, the Jeff Epsteins of the world, how were they able to get away with all that has happened? How did that continue? How did they continue to be able to abuse individuals? But even like you see, I believe wholeheartedly that everything that R. Kelly has been accused of, that he is responsible for. That's what I believe. That's my position, right? And he was doing that at a time when he kept getting slapped on the wrist. But today, under this new Me Too movement where women are really coming forward and feeling powerful and organized and fighting. Shout out to my sister, Tarana Burke, who started the Me Too movement about 12 or 13 years ago. And again, she started it 12 or 13 years ago, and it took this long for her to get the type of attention and to be able to have the success with her campaign that she has now. So we're living in two different eras. And now R. Kelly is finally in prison, which we know he should have been in jail, or at least I know. I'm not going to speak for you. I think that we agree. We've talked about it. But R. Kelly, he should have been in prison then. He should have been in prison for peeing on a 14-year-old girl. He should have been in prison for a lot of things that happened, but he's just there now. So I just think that we don't know. And Kobe Bryant is no longer with us. And I don't want to relive or relitigate something that, as you said, it was thrown out. We haven't heard from this woman in a long time. You know, if what she says did happen to her, then I hope that, her healing process continues. I really do. But at the end of the day, I am not personally prepared to discuss anything. I mean, I'm talking about when, the dog walking, whatever may have gone wrong in your life, when you and your daughter blow up in a plane. I think there has to be some humanity, as you said, for individuals.
I think it has to be humanity, is that when a person dies, like when we just think about Michael Jackson, and then somebody coming out with these allegations in a whole movie when a man is passed. Like, I think, for me, it's like your death should be sacred. If your situation, whatever you were dealing with during your life.
See, it's hard to say because my life should have been sacred. So if in fact you abused me, that's sacred as well. I mean, I think that the moral order is hard for us to be able to.
Because at this point, I can't argue back for me. When I'm no longer here and you make an accusation and you gather up all your evidence and you gather up all your people that's against me, I don't have the opportunity to fight for myself. So what you do now, you weren't, or you didn't come make these claims so
No, don't say
no,
you
no,
didn't.
listen to me, not claims. I'm saying you were not able to validate these claims during my life. So you utilize my death to validate your claims and you destroy my legacy. But
then my life has been destroyed. I mean, I think we could argue this all day, and we got to move on.
We got to move on
because it's a sticky situation. I think the best way for us to be able to do, because we can't tell victims how to address being victimized. I think what we have to be able to do, though, is draw some lines around a box and say, a man and his daughter blow up in a plane. Let us have 24 hours. 48 hours before we begin to go back and dig up everything that a person's done that's wrong.
But you said 48 hours, and then the wife who's lost her husband and her daughters. Now so do you care about what she has
I understand
to do?
but
because she's a victim now.
Yeah, but my
now
argument.
You're victimizing her.
No, I'm not victimizing her. Your husband or whomever it is may have victimized all of us. Well, but everybody's experience. You can't tell me to be silent in my pain.
I'm not telling you to be silent in your pain. And I'm just saying that.
Here's the deal.
It's like this. This is what there's a level. There has to be a level of statute of limitations or something.
Statute of limitations. You and you're making up words.
Statute.
Statute.
No, it's statute.
No, it's statute.
I don't believe it's statute.
Okay, well, we're going to look it up while you're getting your point.
I think it's statute of
You
limitation.
might be right. I'd be wrong. So go ahead on. I'm listening to you.
Anyway, the bottom line is, I think when you die and you can't be charged for the crime, because you can't charge me for a crime in my death. It's impossible for you to do it. Like, there's nothing that you can receive. You can't, because I can't be tried. I can't be held accountable in my death.
I hear what
you say. So if I can't be held accountable for a crime while I'm dead, then you should not be able to bring forth these accusations to try to
no, it's not about bringing forth. It's not about bringing. First of all,
they can't even fight for.
But my son. First of all, we haven't heard anything from the woman.
I'm just saying.
So no. We haven't heard anything from her. So don't say you can't try to destroy my legacy because she didn't say anything.
That's a valid point.
This is, and I want us to move on. But here's the deal: when you die, people not gonna make up a new story. They're gonna talk about who you were, and that includes everything about you. That little dash between the day you were born and the day you die is all that people will know.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want that dash to look a certain way, you gotta live a certain way. And if you
don't
and
get
I'm
to
not
tell
saying
how do you get to say that I didn't live it, and I'm not here to defend myself.
Because
if you just come out the blue, or you don't come out the blue, if you just decide that something happened,
listen,
and you decide today when I'm dead, and I can't argue back.
Who is the you? Because again, the victim did not speak on it.
I'm talking about anybody. I'm not even talking about the victim.
But what I'm saying is that when the
how does that turn into news?
Is reporting, unfortunately, I will live. Tamika Mallory will always have to deal with the issue of anti-Semitism that was waged against me. Mm-hmm. When I die, people are going to say nicely and not so nicely, during her life, this happened.
Yeah.
That's just the reality.
Okay.
No one is saying today.
But the bottom line is, I hear what you're saying. They can say, during your life, this happened. But the bottom line is the validity of what they're saying.
But that nobody asked about validity.
No, but that's what I'm talking about.
Okay, so but that's neither here. But that's neither here nor there.
Oh no, people can say what they want to say.
Okay, so but that's all we were talking about.
I'm talking about valid.
We said people want to bring it up now.
Yeah,
that was how we started.
Something.
People want to bring it up.
Making it valid.
But that's not what we're talking about because there's no way to further validify or not or solidify or whatever words you want to use. And I think I'm making up words. There's no way to be able to do that, like you said, when there's not two people able, that are able to discuss an issue. However, I still think that we should be able to allow death to be death and let death to take its course. And then all people are going to do is talk about who you are, what you did, and what your story may or may not have been. Mm-hmm. That's just the reality. Okay. But we should move on.
Okay, so listen, we can just agree to disagree. I agree with some of what you said. Some of it I don't.
That's fine. We always do. But we can still move because we have to. This is a serious topic.
It is definitely
a very serious topic.
But I just want everybody to see that there's different points of view.
There are. There are.
As much as I gravitate and I identify with my black woman struggle and all women struggle, I just want you to kind of identify what I was a little bit.
I do. But still.
Cool. But still. Okay. Exactly. So, Mississippi. We just came back from Mississippi.
Yeah.
We had a major rally, protest against what's going on in Parchment prisons, basically the whole MDOC. It was a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot going on there. And I mean, even today, I've received reports of a man who may or may not have hung himself yesterday or hanged himself yesterday. I don't even know. Like, you're not sure if everybody's committing suicide. You don't really know what's going on.
But you do know that the state is responsible for the well-being of those prisoners.
Absolutely.
And that's what I think. That's what it is. I think people get it so misconstrued. The people who are out there with us, they get that.
Right.
But when you listen to the governor's statements, either governor you listen to, the new governor or the old one, they seem to put all the onus on the prisoners.
They do.
And to me, it's kind of crazy that you would put onus on prisoners that are housed in a facility in which you run. You have officers who are put in there to run the facility.
A warden,
exactly. Right. You have a warden who has officers who run these different housing. Me being formerly incarcerated, understand how it goes. Understand that we don't run the prison. We don't make the rules. Like, there are people put in place to enforce the rules.
Yeah.
So when the rules are not being carried out properly, when the facility is not up to standard of human living,
right?
Those things you can't put on the people who are under the how should I say it? Who are the people who are inside the facility who are being housed in the facility?
No, that's right.
The people who are running it have to take that level of
responsibility. They do. And there was a video, and we talked about it. Actually, I did an interview on when we were there. The last, not just this time that passed on this week, but there was another time when we went there. The first time we went to Mississippi for this particular issue, and I did an interview with a family who their child's video had gone viral because he was hanging in a cell.
Man, they have my apartment give a fuck about her, man. They made me day about 12 o'clock, man. Man, hungry so. Do you hear me?
And I say child because that's important to know. It was his aunt and his mother and other family members who were trying to find someone to help them because their loved one was on a video. That's how they saw him deceased.
You can go check out that video on Until Freedom.
Yeah, you can go to Until Freedom's Instagram and you will see it. And the warden is literally standing at the bottom of the steps while other prisoners are wrapping up his body and then carrying him down. There's no personnel. She's not helping. She's standing there. This is a woman who I believe to be a warden. The families have said it's the warden. The person who put the video out says it's the warden. So, they say it's the warden. I believe it's the warden. She's standing there watching them doing the work of wrapping up a body and then bringing it out. And this in the sheet. And this is after he had been hanging for, they say, somewhere between 8 to 12 hours. So you see different videos of different time periods where he's hanging in the cell. That to me it's a humanitarian crime. Yeah. It's a crime.
It's negligence.
It's negligence.
And I think it's criminal negligence.
It is. And the governor's position is that cell phones, contraband cell phones, are the problem in the jail.
And my position is the contraband cell phones are the only reason that we know that these things are happening.
Right. The cell phones aided the whistleblowers inside the prison, as was said at the rally that we held in Mississippi on Friday.
I want to shout out, before you go, I want to shout out people like Big Crit, who came out, Jay Prince brothers, who are in the hip-hop community and utilize their voices. We want to uplift the local.
Yeah, Yandy
was
our
there.
board member
Jamila,
from Until Freedom.
My friends.
I mean, it was so many people that came from across the country to be a part of supporting the local folks. And we should do a show on how people should engage when they want to help a local community with an issue. We
also
didn't
shout out Rock Nation also who
absolutely
who
Team
with
Rock.
Us.
Rock Nation's philanthropic arm. They were the ones to help fund and support the rally. And so they're doing a lot of work trying to figure out how to bring legislation and protest and all of the different things that we need together in order to support the movement. So shout out to them for that work. But, we didn't just parachute into Mississippi and say, we're taking over.
That's right.
We went into Mississippi to find out what do the local organizers need and then to help uplift them and really sort of bring their voices to the forefront. But people are dying every day. The numbers that we have that are official numbers coming out are 12 deaths, right? Whether that be suicide or gang violence, as they say, or some other way, because people have infections. There's a lot of things happening.
There's nobody speaking about the amount of injuries that were caused. We have videos where we see prisoners who have shots from these rubber bullets that the officers shoot with.
They're using it to control the jail.
Right. They're literally shot with holes in their torsos, in their backs, where they're bleeding. There's no one giving them the proper medical infections. Like, it's just so crazy when you really look at this situation to understand that this is actually happening. You don't believe, because I try to tell people, being formerly incarcerated, there's so many things that go on that a person who's never been in those situations doesn't understand that it's actually happening. They be like, it's no way that happened.
There's no way.
So when you're able to see these things on these videos, there's another one we seen. You actually witness a violence with a fight, someone being stabbed.
That one was really tough.
Very graphic.
To see a video where you see a man stabbing another man and they're running around the prison and there's no guards. Like, where are the guards? I'm so confused.
In my experience, I've actually literally seen situations like that. I've been on tiers where certain guards allow things like that to happen because they don't like one of the prisoners,
Right.
or they with the other prisoner, and they feel like they'll leave someone's cell open on purpose, or they leave them both.
Well,
locked
obviously,
out.
because these two guys are running around the prison,
and you can hear people
and
screaming
other
like, "Get
people
him,
are
get him."
inside their cells locked up. So it's like, how are they out? What is the protocol? I mean, it's just the whole situation's out of control. And also, while I was looking at my phone, you're right, it's statute.
I knew I was right.
Limitations.
Thank you.
So I was wrong.
Okay,
but I think it's important for us to tell people what they can do, because everybody's like, what can they do? I think, one, you've got to go to the Color of Change website. Go to the Color of Change website. That's colorofchange.org. And look for Shut Down Parchment. Shut Down Parchment. Colorofchange.org. Shut Down Parchment.
Wait a second.
Uh-oh.
I got my T-shirt on.
I'm like, I was about to get nervous.
No,
like,
don't
what
get
happened
that.
here?
No.
Oh, you have your closed
I got my
Parchment
closed
T-shirt
Parchment
on.
T-shirt
Lord
on. Look.
Jesus.
You know
Look
what
at
I'm saying?
there.
Look at there.
All
We out
right.
here. Closed
He's got
Parchment.
his closed Parchment.
But yeah. So for those of you who are listening, I just showed my closed Parchment T-shirt.
Yes.
So if you can go to iWomanTV and see my closed Parchment T-shirt.
Again, shout out to Team Rock
Shout
for
out to Team Rock for
providing
that.
those T-shirts and
You know
whatnot. We got to do a whole conversation about Jay-Z, because I'm sure there's people that's going to be like, oh, now Jay-Z is helping with this, but then what about Colin Kaepernick in the NFL?
Well, you know my position.
But we should
on
talk
all
about
that.
it
So,
another
we
day.
can.
But I just want to acknowledge, so that folks who are listening don't feel like we don't understand that there's a lot of complications in this work.
This movement, I tell people all the time,
It's very complex.
it's very complex.
It's very
And
complex.
there's so many different entry points, and if you look at historically,
Yeah.
if you look at historically, there's feud between Malcolm and Martin,
Right.
and how they viewed each other, and how Malcolm called Martin certain things, but we know how instrumental both of them.
Yeah. I mean,
was
one
to
of
our
the things
liberation.
that I think is important, and I've watched this, I work for National Action Network, which is a civil rights organization that's been around for over 25 years. And while sometimes the NAACP, the Urban League, and NAN had different positions about different issues, but when it came to things that was important, we all found a way to come together to address them. And I think we've got to figure that out, that we're not going to always be on the same page. And there's going to be some issues that we don't necessarily work on together. But there's going to be other things that we need the force of the entire unit, the entire family to come together on. And I feel like Parchment is one of those issues. I wrote on my Facebook page, I want to know where the rabbis and the imams and all the pastors and the pink pussy hat folk and the Women's March, which we built, that is supposed to be an intersectional movement. That's what we left. That's the legacy that Linda, Carmen, and Bob and I left behind, that this is an intersectional movement that is supposed to care about all people, and particularly folks who are literally in the most vulnerable places in our society. Parchment is that. You got people locked up that can't just leave the situation. Mm-hmm. They're locked up and they're literally dying. And it's not just Parchment. Parchment is everywhere. Since we've been going through this,
we found that out.
Everywhere.
I mean, basically, we started out with the MDC
in Brooklyn.
That's
right.
The first part. And then we've been getting Alabama, North Carolina. My DMs are overflowing with pictures, with text messages, with just drawn out situations that people are dealing with in prisons that mirror what's going on in Parchment.
Yeah,
so
Parchment is
now
everywhere.
that we realize that Parchment is everywhere, I think that's going to be one
the
of
work that has to be done. So we
have
talked
to do.
about the petition. That's really important. But also, again, supporting the local folks. On Facebook, you can follow Mississippi Prison Reform Coalition. That's Mississippi Prison Reform Coalition. All the details about their demands, because folks like to make us feel like these movements is just folks yelling and we're just protesting, and we don't really have substantial demands and a real movement that is based upon solutions. Well, there are demands. Number one, the governor has the ability to commute sentences of people who are in prison for nonviolent offenses, or folks who have been in prison for 30, 40 years. They're elderly, and perhaps they did commit a crime at one point that we would see as, you know, a violent crime or something like that. But they're older, and compassionate release. He has the ability to do that. Also, there are at least 5,000 people, because Parchment is overcrowded, and there are at least 5,000 people who are eligible for parole. Again, low-level offenses where folks are in prison. I mean, we don't have time to talk about Mississippi's sentencing law.
That's a whole nother thing.
Where people are being locked up for, small marijuana. Next thing you know, somehow they got 20, 30 years in prison. And people are like, you know, why should we care?
That's what they're saying, because they look at the situations, and in many cases, people believe that everyone in prison is one of the most violent, vile people that you can see. And that's not everybody's situation. Even those who are violent, they still deserve to be treated like human beings. Because the reality of the situation is there has to be level of humanity. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what the statute code, that's what rehabilitation is about. And even if you put them inside this, because some of them aren't coming home. So the reality of rehabilitation is not factual and it's not actual. But the bottom line is there is a statute, and there is a certain level of humanity that the facility demands.
That's right.
So you have to uphold that for everyone that is incarcerated within that facility.
Right, because people are like, these folks are animals. Why should we care about them? But someone like you, who went to prison for a crime you didn't commit and spent 7 years there, I mean, you were there.
And I understand
in the
that.
Same
and there's a lot of people just like that. You know, I know people who've been convicted of 25 years for similar situations, for mistaken identity, for low-level crimes that they classified as violence. Someone supposedly stole a pocketbook from a woman who had $1 in the pocketbook. And they said he had armed robbery. He never had anything, but they never caught him with anything. But the man ended up doing 20 years. A good friend, one of my mentors. And he used to sit there and tell me that he thought it was a joke when he was going to trial. Him and his friends laughed. As this elderly white lady sat there and said all she had in her wallet was $1, and he supposedly took it. And he's like, why would I do that? And they thought it was a joke until they sentenced him to 20 years to life. And he just came home last year. You know, one of the most brilliant individuals I know. He's created his own nonprofit. He's mentoring young boys. So these situations happen daily. There are a bunch of people inside prison that don't even supposed to be there.
Have different situations.
For different situations who've been classified as violent. So you look and you put this stigma on people because they're in this situation, and you don't know what everybody's going through.
No,
you don't know what their reality is.
That's right. It has to be one standard of humane treatment for prisons. And also, we as taxpayers, we spend our money. Like, we literally are paying for these prisons. And some people are coming out of there. So would you prefer to have someone come out of the prison who has been living like an animal inside, and now they're in society with the rest of us? Or do you want them to be in there getting the proper treatment so that they can mentally and physically and emotionally enter society just like you and I? You know, so I just feel like
it creates, I tell you all the time, it creates a mind state of savagery.
It does.
Because when you surrounded by feces and you're surrounded by sublevel human,
these people are using the bathroom in plastic bags.
They're doing a number 2
in plastic bags that don't get picked up immediately.
Tying it up, sitting it in corners and waiting for someone to come get it. Like the mindset that has to be. Just think about it. Like I can tell you situations where inside solitary confinement where people have put feces in their mouths just to get some level of attention. To come and when they come and they spit it on, like the mind state that you have to have to do that. So this is what this is what these situations have created. And you know, I just think that when we look at this, Parchment is everywhere.
Parchment is everywhere. But you know, you gotta, you know, I'm looking right here, right now at this story that just literally broke around Nicki Minaj's brother receiving 25 years for repeatedly raping his stepdaughter, who was 11 years old. And so you got to be able to talk to people and help them understand, because it's hard to reconcile why I should go and protest and fight for someone who committed this type of heinous act against a child.
Well, my thing is this. I'm not even going to lie to you. You know, I think the worst crimes in the world that you can commit is rape, and pedophilia. Like, to me, I personally don't believe that you deserve to live. That's just my personal thing.
Yeah, it is, because
that's all
the
my
death
personal
penalty
things.
is a whole different.
That's a whole nother thing.
Conversation.
Whole
We've
nother
got
conversation.
so many topics.
We got so many topics. But what I say is, if there is a statute and there is a common ground for a prison, and you are housed in that prison, then that's what has to happen.
So now you're just gonna use statute for the rest of the
listen,
show,
look,
since I messed it up and thought I knew something that
yeah,
I didn't know.
I mean, because you wanted to call me out and say I'm making up words.
No, but you do that. Don't even front.
I mean, listen, that's what good.
Yeah, you and Reverend
orators
Jesse
do.
Jackson.
When
I
you're
say
a
that
great
all the
orator,
time.
you're supposed to create. Like, somebody created these words we listen to.
This is true.
Right, so we got to create new language
to explain things to our people.
things in a new way.
No, but I mean, I understand how folks feel like these are violent folks, but I just think that if you have one standard, then it captures all people, because you have too many folks who are being exonerated. They're coming home from prison doing 30 years, 20 years, 40 years. With DNA is exonerating them. And look at the Central Park Five. So that means that the Central Park Five would be in the same. The exonerated five would be in the same prison with someone who it may be, Nicki Minaj's brother, and then it's okay for them to have 6 rats on the rat trap in their room. That's in their cell. It's water browner than me, and they have to drink the water, bathe in the water if they get a bath. People in Parchment are saying they haven't had a bath in 30 days. And I think we could just, move on from this as well, but just to make sure people understand the magnitude of what's happening at Parchment. Parchment is literally sitting on a former plantation, a slave plantation. That's right. So at the end of slavery, whatever that means, but at the end of, quote unquote, end of slavery, recognized slavery, recorded slavery, they closed the plantation and opened a prison. So I don't even know if you can ever fix Parchment, because the history is too deep. It's too deep.
I don't believe, that it's a possibility to be fixed. I think the facility, the history, everything makes it say that we just need to start something else.
You got to just change. You got to tear it down. You got to shut it down.
You got to shut it down.
Shut it down. Colorofchange.org.
There you go.
Shut down Parchment.
Shut down Parchment. Close Parchment.
That's it. Period. Point blank.
Now, Grammys.
The Grammys.
It's a little lighter. That's what
I mean. It's like, this is our experience. We could be talking about hell over here and then be like, man, and then the Grammys happened and the Rock Nation brunch and people was all fly. And Beyonce is the baddest thing that ever happened.
I love Beyonce. Beyonce's her level of grace and beauty and just class is just unmatched. It's just to me, like, she ain't trying. It's such a natural exuberance
if you have kids,
of aura.
How many kids she has? She has 3 kids.
Yes, she has
3 kids and a husband. You got to try a little bit to look
but
as
it don't
good
look,
as she
it
looks.
Maybe she got to try, but I swear to God, it just looks so natural, and she just comes across so flawless.
And shout out to Alicia Keys, who had a birthday last week and was the host for the Grammys, and she did an amazing job of navigating between Kobe Bryant and Nipsey Hussle and the tributes there, but then also keeping people's spirits up and reminding them that we got to be on high vibrations. But that's one thing about Alicia. Alicia is another class act. She is. And beautiful, her energy, sexy woman. Her energy and her optimism. Yes.
It's like, it's all in her face. Like,
it's infectious.
Even when you could tell that she might be angry, she just looks like it's something positive. It doesn't, even in her anger, the positivity just exudes from her. So, I definitely want to salute those black women.
But your boy P. Diddy.
P. Diddy, stole the show for me. Puff stole the show for me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? He was honored at Clyde Davis' event that he does the night before.
The night before. That's the same night that Whitney died, man. That's many years ago. Wow. It's just surreal.
You couldn't. You had to bring that up.
No, it's true.
I know. I'm saying every time you hear that night, you like, damn, Whitney died.
Yeah.
But so he honored. He gave him a Lifetime Achievement Award, and the performance looked dope. I didn't really get to see it, but they had a big tribute to him. Seen Mace come out there just because I got a lot of my friends were there, and when he accepted the award, his statement was that basically saying that, I'm glad to receive this award, but we know that historically this institution has not respected our music. It hasn't respected our artistry, has not celebrated us properly, and we basically created most of everything within this culture, within this genre, and we are able to capitalize off it, and you utilize us, but you don't celebrate us properly, and we know that. And he literally said that stops today. He said because everybody who has the power is in this room to change that. And then you seen Jay-Z and you seen all of these big stars stand up. He said, we're going to change that today. He said, we're not going for it no more. Y'all got 365 days to get this right. I don't know how you want to do, but I'm willing to help. If we got to figure out some diversity, we're going to have to figure this out. But, it's a bunch of us in here that are willing to sit down with you and figure out what we need to do to make it right. But somebody got to make it right.
Right. It's the same thing with the Oscars. Just happened. Same
thing with the Oscars. So why, we hear it all the time. But when he made that statement, I wrote on my page, you mother, right. You know what I'm saying? Right.
Of course
That's
you
what I'm
said
talking
that. You
about,
wrote
bro.
that in public,
and
right?
Of course I did. Look, come on. Ain't no hair on my tongue, man. I say how I feel because I realize that. None. Ain't no curve in my vertebrae.
Oh, okay.
Straight up.
See, I know
yeah,
stuff.
Look, you got
right.
a couple bars. Okay. Okay, son. You know what I'm saying? Ain't no curve in my. But the bottom line is, when you look at, because for me, when Jay-Z got nominated, I think that hurt me more than anything. Jay-Z was nominated for 8 awards for 444. And that was him celebrating and talking about our culture.
Never.
Just like Beyonce. When she was nominated, and she didn't get awards when it was talking about our culture.
Right.
When it was talking about...
She didn't get anything for, what was it called? The film. What's the film called? Look, there are people here, just so y'all know, that can help us. No, not Lemonade, just her HBCUs and Homecoming. Yeah. Like, how could that be? That was the most entertainment ever.
It's celebrating our culture. See, they don't do it. It's just like another person who said Tyler Creator. Tyler Creator won an award in a genre that he didn't feel that he even supposed to be in.
Right.
He won an award for a rap and hip-hop, and he was like, but the song wasn't hip-hop. I bended the genre. We did something different. And, and once again, it's classified as urban. Every time that somebody that looks like me does anything, it's urban.
Yeah. And
it's put into the rap category. And he said basically the term urban to him, which is actually a fact, is code for the N-word. And he doesn't even want to be classified as that. He said, so why can't we be classified as pop? Because that's what the music is. It's something that goes outside.
Well, that was the same thing with the Old Town. What's his name?
Yeah, he had to. They said that can't be country until he got Billy Cyrus on it. You understand what I'm saying? Until you get people that look like them.
What's his name?
Little Nas X.
Not
him and Nas just got a new song called Rodeo. I didn't hear it, but I'm like, dang, Nas and Nas X.
But y'all was hating on it when it first came out.
No, it's not hating on it.
Not J. Cole. What's the other guy's name?
Dave East.
It's
not hating on it.
No, y'all was hating.
No, I don't listen to me. The thing is this. It's a song that doesn't fit into what
I don't know the words,
is conventional for hip hop for us. Like
but hip hop is evolving.
But listen to me, no. See, but that's an opinion.
Let's not get into that.
Don't say because that word evolving
right.
exactly. Please
you're
don't
right
do that
because
to me.
Evolving sometimes means our people get excluded out.
Exactly,
and there is a rich history of hip hop that we must preserve.
Evolution to me means getting better. So that is a perception.
So there are different perspectives, different
perspectives and different viewpoints. We didn't talk about the Rock Nation brunch alone. Just every time I watch the Rock Nation brunch and I get little clips, I go to Diddy's page.
And we happen to be in Mississippi.
And
we weren't at the brunch, which we could have been. But that's a whole different
When I
topic.
look at these things and I see all of these powerful people in one room, and every year you see them growing and them being more intentional about building our own. Every time you see them make a bigger stand, you see them grow and their platforms grow, it just really makes me feel good.
Right.
It inspires me. I wake up the next day like, yes, because I could do that.
It is great. But I think it is great. It's beautiful to see. But I just wonder when someone says they have 365 days to fix it, what does that mean? Like, what are we prepared to do? Because your boy Kirk Franklin, when he felt that all of the statements around sort of Black Lives Matter issues were being removed from one of those big gospel shows
Yeah,
that
said
he was being honored or performing in one of these big gospel shows, and he felt that the parts that really expressed Black pain and Black culture and other issues that we deal with and just our world in general, he felt it was being somehow removed or being edited out of the footage by the time he saw the show. So he's like, yo, I'm not doing it anymore until that gets fixed. And so that's the type of stand that you have to be willing to make.
So that brings me
To
to my little
it
brings me to my little segment.
Yeah, as we go on.
And it's called I Don't Get It.
You don't get it.
I just don't get it.
This
And-
is so you.
No,
I don't get it.
No, I don't get it.
Y'all don't
So-
understand how many times this man calls me and says, I don't get it. I don't
Because
understand.
I really just don't get it.
That means he thinks it's stupid.
No, it's not. I know it's stupid. You know what I'm saying? Or I'm so confused and I need somebody to explain to me because, man, I don't know everything, but I know what I know.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is when we look at all these situations, we look at the Grammys, we look at the Oscars, we look at Kirk Franklin's situation. We hear Tyler, the Creator. We see they don't celebrate homecoming. We see Jay-Z get 8 nominations for about 444 and never win any. We see these things constantly happen. We hear somebody go up there and say we need to do this every year. Why do we constantly and continuously look for validation from organizations and institutions who have never celebrated us? Why don't we create our own institutions, our own situations where we are celebrated? Why do we constantly keep looking for people to love us that don't love us? Why are we looking for it? Because maybe they just don't get it, and it's okay because we get it. We don't get some of the stuff you're talking about. So why don't we? You know what I'm saying? Why is it that it's taking us so long to build our own? Why do we keep looking for value? Why do we need the Grammys to tell us that we're great? Why do we need the Oscars to tell us that we're great? No, when you look at these movies, when you hear this music, when we see how it's touched the culture, how it shifts the mind state, how it's able to shift the world, how we dictate what you wear, what you say, how you say it, all these things. When are we going to come together and say, we need to create our own? We not, and it's scary. I think it's scary.
I think that we would have to have psychiatrists, psychologists, Black historians. Like this type of show will require us having people who understand the mental psyche of 400 years of enslavement that our people experience, and then all that has happened to date. I think you would have to have people here that understand what it's like to be oppressed and to deal with that oppression every day, and to never just be able to reach the above the ceiling, not even the ceiling.
But the
above
thing is
the
this:
ceiling.
we constantly hear it, and we watch. When you look at these people that's at the Rock Nation brunch,
Yeah.
right?
You could create your own.
You could create your
Right.
own because these people have 50, 60, 70 million followers. Like you pretty much have the world following you. Just like when Jay-Z decided, I don't want to do YouTube, I don't want to do Spotify. I'm just gonna create Tidal.
And that's and I think we gotta go because folks probably are like, wow, this is good, but I gotta get to my kids or I gotta do something else. I think that you're right. But there are challenges with starting your own.
But that's what the thing is.
And I know
we
we
gotta
should
stop being
do it.
scared.
No, it's not about
We
being
have to.
scared.
It is. The
It's
challenge
not about,
is the
no,
fear.
it's not. It's not about the fear. It's not about the fear. It's that, a lot of people, I guess the fear could be on one side that a lot of people have started things and they lost a lot trying to do that and not getting the support of our people. See, we have to work on all different fronts. You and I think our work is going out there just like we organize people for rallies and other things. We have to have which we do have, and we've been talking about and working on, an economic development plan that helps us understand our 1.4 trillion spending power that we can take and begin to support these things. Because what you're not going to have if you start your own show, right, your own Grammy type of show, Puff knows because we see what he does with the Revolt Music Conference when he has had, shows honoring people and all of that. The advertising is not there. So when the advertising dollars, meaning that these big corporations are not purchasing tables and tickets and putting ads in your journals and branding your stuff, when they're not spending those big 100,000 plus checks, you can't pay your staff, you can't pay for the dinners, you can't pay. So therefore, if that is in fact the case, where you know you're not going to get the advertising dollars because they are going to do everything that they can to try to shut down your ability to celebrate Black excellence and challenge white supremacy, because that's the thing. Puff be challenging white supremacy at the same time. You could celebrate Black excellence and Sambo your way across the stage, but once you start talking about systemic racism, that becomes an issue. That's when you lose your advertising dollars. So that means that we as a people have got to begin to understand that if we want our people to be independent, we want our activists to be independent, we want our own media, we want our own shows, we got to fund it. And we have the money. We have $1
that's what I'm trying to
for
say.
each household.
What you're saying is my thing. When you said that, because everything else you said made a lot of sense. But when I look at Rock Nation Brunch and you see Kevin Hart and you see Jay-Z and you see Puff Daddy and you see Khaled and you see all of these people who are mega millionaires. These are not little. What would it take for all of y'all to sit there? Y'all saying we leveling up, y'all. Every year I hear we leveling up, and I see you moving a level up and you talking about the issues. But the level up now is to create entities that are separate and separated from what they're dealing with.
Right.
You know, so that we don't have to continue to say, yo, you're not doing us right.
Right.
If we keep asking the people that are pressing us to help us. Is
and
never
that's why
at
Until Freedom, we said unless it's a very special situation, we're not trying to take corporate money, right? And we didn't do it at the Women's March. We didn't want corporations to control our message. You can't have a big banner from some brand on top of your head and then be talking stuff about, you know, whatever. Got to be careful. But imagine if we took our power in our hands. Imagine if what Puff said, where he says, listen, you got 365 days to challenge this. And during this time, we work on building our own and getting people, because they're still not going to do it.
The key to it is this, and it's like anything. It's like what Martin Luther King said, pulling yourself by your own bootstraps. And he said it's crazy to say that to a man who has no boots.
Right. It's a joke to a man that has no boots.
I believe you should. He said, yeah, it's a sad joke.
Sad joke.
So
right.
the reality of the situation is while we're building and forcing them to acknowledge us, we should still be building ours.
Right.
Absolutely. And slowly but surely. And then we're falling. Exactly.
Made a switch to a black network. You know, and just thinking about you know, she probably doesn't want me to say, but my good sister Kat Trigg, who is the great leader of iWomanTV, you know, the producer of this grand Street Politicians podcast.
Right.
She was saying earlier when we were talking, like, you know, imagine if Kobe played for HBCU rather than, you know, which he didn't play for a white institution, but that probably would have been the trajectory, right? He didn't play for any, but still, imagine if he played for HBCU.
But imagine right now if the top 5 players in the NBA started to advocate for HBCUs.
Right.
If they say, yo, we need y'all to go to these
HBCUs
and they utilize their platform and they showcase them and they say, look, boom, boom, these are the top 5 players coming out. And they utilize and they created their own, because people coming to you for basketball. They want to know who's hot through you. So if you utilize your platform and you start showcasing these players and then you say, yo, we're going to be at the HBCU, we want you to come see them play, and they beating people by 50 points, you can't ignore them.
Exactly.
They can't. I don't care how much.
Because then the resources would be going to schools like Morehouse and North Carolina Central.
Now we have to go to schools that are historically
Howard,
that have been historically racist.
Hampton. I can't say Howard without saying Hampton. Can't say Morehouse without saying Spelman.
Because
Clark. So let me not get myself in trouble and stop right now.
But what I want to say is, before we leave, is that the history of 90% of these schools that are the top schools in D1 divisions are historically racist schools that prior to athletics,
Confederate statues at the school.
Still, you know what I'm saying?
You can't get in.
Exactly.
You can pay for your way in, but you can't have a brilliant mind. As a white student, your parents can pay for you to get an education. And then when they get caught, they get 12 and 14 days in jail and whatever in jail. But you, as a brilliant mind, a black child whose parent bust their behind to put you through school, can't even get in.
Can't even get in. So when we understand that and we see those situations, then we have to make real concrete lines in the sand and say, yo, look, I don't know how far it's gonna get, but I'm willing to sacrifice to create the change. I might lose.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what Martin Luther King said. I might sacrifice my life. I might have to give my life, but I'm willing to give that because I want to see something different.
Right. That's right. Every time, I mean, imagine if Dr. King saw Barack Obama. What would that meeting have been like?
Excellent. Listen, thank y'all for being with us.
Yeah, man. It was a good show.
It was a dope episode once again. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We talked about a lot of topics. A little debate, a little different ideas, but for the most part.
It's all right.
You know,
we got some stuff we got to keep working through.
You know, we're working through. Listen, we love what we do, man.
Right.
You know, and we do it with passion.
Learning together.
Learning.
That's right.
You know? And
Learning
if you have
together.
anything that you want to discuss, if any topics you want to hear us talk about, anything that's in your mind or some topic that you definitely want to hear about on Street Politicians, you can follow us on all social media. It's Street Politicians. DM us, send us a message, let us know what you think, give us critiques, tell us you hate the show, tell us you love the show, whatever, we open for it. Because the reality of the situation is we don't always agree. We're not always going to be right. And we're not always going to be wrong, but we always going to be authentic.
Peace, y'all.
Peace. That's how we own it.